All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another devlog. I believe this is the fifth or sixth one. I'm not too sure. But other than that, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump straight into it. I guess 1.5 is pretty quick enough. So just kind of like a few things, kind of want to go over. Um, as you can see from the previous video, I had the other Kairo character, crocodile main character that I had. So if you notice, on the left hand side, it's kind of being blocked by like the camera icon. That's the earlier version of Cairo, and I went through quite a bit of changes after a couple of time and getting better at concept art and character creation. I decided to upgrade him. So on the right hand side is the renewed. I guess you can say this the newer version of Cairo. And then the other one looks like kind of like the baby version of him. Looks with the big bobblehead. It was kind of very not proportionate in any way. So I decided to go back and basically retouch him up. And of course, this isn't the final piece that how he's going to be shown throughout the game. I have gone through a couple more changes. But just kind of wanted to show you all just some changes to the game that I'm making, and just how different he's looked so far. Um, but other than that, this video is mainly going to be about rigging, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of skip to a little bit of that portion. We're here saving, creating capsule colliders, just some basic Unity 2D asset creations in any way. That way I can be able to make the character move, collide, and etc, etc, etc. So we're gonna go here to the juicy part. So right here is where I used to edit. I don't know, this was years ago. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing as I've animated quite recently using the sprite editor. There's just a few more changes, specifically for the IK handle system that is newer. But this is pretty much the main concept of it, how I rig in Unity using the bones. I, of course, created each of these sort of symmetrical pieces within Photoshop, and then I just went ahead and just broke it apart, kind of like a breakdown sprite sheet. And over here, just go ahead and go to the sprite editor, create bones, and then that's how I'm able to create the bones as such. So, pretty useful stuff that I'm showing you all. Pretty basic stuff. It's quite simple. On just whatever drawing you're doing, you break it up, pretty much. And then once I'm done, is the weighting tools. So whenever you're done placing your bones, oh, I guess right here I forgot to. Sorry, I forgot. I guess when I was first doing this, I forgot that you actually had to click on the actual sprite that you're using and then create the bones. I kind of was already hovered, I think, on the head and it created bones everywhere else. But essentially, once you do create your bones, you can definitely just do edit geometry or auto geometry, and it'll go ahead and split it. Basically, how the mesh is gonna deform, and you can add. I added more edges specifically around the areas where it's gonna mainly deform at, where it's gonna be connected, where the legs are gonna be connected, and all that fun stuff. The head is just one solid piece. Of course, I'm not making the mouth move. Um, but other than here, you can see it's highlighted in orange. I don't know what it looks like nowadays, but uh, as of right here, I'm just going ahead, just editing geometry and basically making it look nice, making it look uh, more realistic in a way where I want the character to move pretty fluently throughout the entire process. So I do that for every single piece, including the tail and the legs and even the eyes, but they're just kind of like one solid piece. And you can kind of see I do auto weights, and sometimes I edit the weights. and you can see it that's by the color of some of them. And over here on the game, on the scene view, you can kind of see where the bones are like highlighted now. So they're actually in the sprite itself in Unity. I know the neck's kind of like off-centered a bit, but other than that, I also go ahead and I rename all my bones, kind of just have proper naming. And that way I'm able to find something rather quickly, especially when it comes to programming and scripting. You're able to just search for it rather than just highlight and dragging it over. Gets tiring. But essentially, yes, just like highlighting, not highlighting, renaming a lot of the bones. And then what I'll do is after I'm done renaming all the bones, I create sort of like its own system of hierarchy for just the bones. I'll literally just call it bones. And it's going to have every single one of them just in there, named correctly as so. And then within that, I start parenting a lot of them to each other. And basically what controls what. Like the left arm is connected to the torso, the tail's connected to the hip. The head is connected to the neck, which is connected to the upper torso, whatever I called it. And it's just all, coming together, with the hip being the main root joint in this case. And so I'm over here testing it, making sure, oh, you see that? Yeah, that's not supposed to happen, but this is part of the testing process where I'm just trying to figure it out using some trial and error here and there, and making sure that I have Kairo being able to move, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty fun. And then after that, we go ahead and just create movement, and we can do whatever we want with him. We can make him jump, and then we'll go ahead and creating the animations, which is the fun part. And it's like different cycles. But doing a little bit more testing. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see right here, but I just want to kind of show you all specifically what I'm working on. But I think at this point, it's like you gotta be careful with some of the making sure you don't move. I'm just messing around with them at this point, but I know I'm just moving them, stretching them. You get to stretch them, make some weird deformities, weird crazy stuff going on here. So it's very exciting. And then I'm just gonna fast forward to see if there's another point. So over here is I guess the part where it gets a little tricky. This is where I'm starting to create IK handles, and I think this is the old way. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll update everything eventually when I get to the most recent Unity. As you can see, this is Unity 2020, very very old. Yeah, don't judge me. I'm sorry. So what I'm essentially doing is making the IK handles, and they require several things. Two things to be exact, and one of them is the effectors, and then two is the IK Manager script. As you can see right there, the IK Manager 2D. I'm putting them all at the hip, so that way I'm easily able to find and access all of them. And essentially any point where it needs an IK, if you don't know, I think it's inverse kinematics. It's just basically instead of having to move every single joint specifically, what the IK does is I'm able to move a set of joints pretty freely. So think of it like as if you're like tossing a football or tossing a basketball. If you notice your hand usually is the IK point handle, and when you're throwing a football, essentially you're not going to want to animate your elbow, your shoulder, your finger, or not your fingers, but your wrist. That's the whole point of IK handles. You just move your wrist and your hand, and everything else just flows nicely with it. So it saves a lot of time. In this case, it's a CCD solver, which is going to be known as it's going to be connected to the IK manager. And I create that CCD solver at every point of wherever I'm going to put the IK handle. So you can see I'm renaming it to left leg. That's basically be the left leg. And then what I'm going to do is create a chain, and then it's going to call for a effector and a target. So the effector is going to be the point where the IK specifically is going to be at, in this case where I'm going to move it. So you'll see I'm just renaming everything. Left arm, left leg, tail, right leg, etc. Every single point. That way when I'm ready to animate, everything's already good to go on the character. So as you can see, I have the tail in the hierarchy, effectors at the very end, and I'm going to be moving it to the very tippy point. Sometimes the effector can be on the foot, on the base foot. So just play around with it. You can have it at the very end of your bone, or just have it at the base of the bone, whichever flows and animates more better for you. I've noticed that the effector sometimes works depending on what character you're animating. It usually works at the very end, and sometimes it doesn't, and it doesn't deform right, and then it just, you can always redo this process and move the effector somewhere else. That way it doesn't really, like, I noticed for the legs it's not ideal to have it at the very end just because it looks weird whenever you're doing like walk cycles, but for the arms it's usually really good. But just be careful whatever you're animating. Usually just make sure the effector is just where you want it to be, and if it doesn't look right you can always just change it later as far as the positioning. And then chain link is important, basically how many bones creating the chain, and right here is a good example. So I don't know if I actually animated like that. Man, that looks terrible, but essentially that's what it is. You have your effector, you have the CCD solver, which is what goes into IK manager, and then right here I'm editing the bone because I'm like, I don't like the way it looks. It looks like garbage. So I'm going in there in the sprite editor and just kind of moving stuff around and maybe creating more. You can see I'm creating more geometry in there. So it's gonna save, and then you're gonna see some of that crazy shit. Whoa, what happened here? Something happened here. So usually be careful whenever you're doing the IK system. It can definitely mess it up. And I'm moving the bone right here. I probably start freaking out right here, but I'm like, whoa, look at that. So I moved it back, and it's just pretty funny. Like I said, you just gotta be careful whenever you're creating the IK system. You can really screw things up. Save, save, save. And then pretty much, I think that's the gist of it for a lot of my characters. So over here, I'm just gonna actually pause it. Well, kind of, where is it? If I can't get to it. So I'm just gonna pause it right here just for now. As you can see, there's like green spots. That's the chain, and essentially it's a chain of 5. So if I'm looking at the left leg, the CC left leg, the target is gonna be the actual left leg. It's gonna be up here, and then the chain link, if you notice, it is actually going to the effector. So it's going from the target of the bone to all the way to the effector. So when I create it as a chain link of 5, you can kind of just follow me. So from the hip or the top of the left leg, that's one right here actually, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see how it works. Like it should always be a 1 chain link by default, I think. And then for each bone it's 1, like 2, 3, 4, 5. He kind of has a weird jacked up like leg system because I made him a little with the kind of like a, what do you call those legs? Like a kind of like a hinged foot kind of style. But that's pretty much the base of it as far as my rigging. And right here you can see where the leg may look a little weird, look a little better. You just gotta play with it. I'm trying to move the actual. Now notice whenever you try to move the bone, it's not gonna let you move the bone. So whenever you do the IK system, you're probably gonna have to create a script that disables it, or something that way you can switch between FK, which is editing every single bone respectfully, and IK, which is just you move the effector and then move the entire chain, sort of like a chain. So just got to be careful, and especially, you can always add a much more complex system than this. This is just kind of like what I've had in my character, and you'll notice at the very, if I go over here, so if I try to zoom in, I don't actually know, but I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little circle over here, so that's the effector. Whenever you create it, this is basically what you can use to control the IK system. So you can click and drag it. Maybe I'll actually do it in this video. If not, then probably not. But yeah, you see there's like the circle right here. There's 2 circles now because I created another IK handle. So as you can see, I'm dragging it. And by dragging that circle, it kind of like moves everything. So I could kind of like shift Kairo into place and then just kind of just have it move around like that. But as far as that's all the time I have for you all. So appreciate the time, and especially those that are watching and keeping up with this game. It is a very, very slow trek as I am the only developer, but I'm just glad to show you what I've done over the course of time and see maybe if it'll help you all in explaining a little bit better if you're new to Unity or just wanting to make a 2D game itself. But I appreciate you all. I hopefully this brought some information and insight into the process, despite it being a little outdated. But thank you all nonetheless, and I'll see y'all later. Thank you.